Welcome to City Shrinks, a zero-filter podcast bringing the conversation about mental health into the 21st century. We are your hosts, Gina
and Athena, two New York City therapists with over 30 years of experience. For today, we put down the notebook and pick up a mic and give you full access to real talk with real professionals.
This is not your typical mental health podcast. Here, the goal is to keep it 100% real with you. We are City Shrinks. Welcome, everybody.
Hello, welcome to the show.
I'm Gina Hurd, LCSWR.
Yes, I am Athena Karas, LMFT.
Okay, so what we have been doing for the last few episodes is we're building. We talked about anxiety. We talked about what it looked like. We're going to go back into it, and we're going to talk about the cure, nuts and bolts. But today, we're going to talk about depression.
We have to weave it in, y'all.
Now, the understanding is you must understand that you will never, ever, ever have anxiety unless you also have depression. That's a fact. That's how it is. Because depression is the wood to the fire of anxiety.
Yes.
It is the wood. It makes the anxiety burn. It makes it present. If you get rid of the wood, push it away, give it less, dampen it, then you're also going to put out the anxiety.
Right, but how do we get to treat the depression when the client in front of us is so anxious? And as we know, anxiety takes over your brain. It's a hijack. That's the word I like to use. It hijacks your brain, and you basically are completely distracted by your anxiety in everyday life with everyday decisions, rituals, habits, thinking, relationships, work, blah, blah, list goes on.
So if the therapist knows that it's really all about the depression, then some of those techniques will really bring the anxiety down. I don't know that it will cure it, because I'm in the business of curing it, but it will certainly bring it down. But if you leave that depression to run wild, you'll be in therapy for 50 years. You may bring it down for a month, a week, and then the next week, it'll be back up without that depression addressed.
And oftentimes, people do have, that dual diagnosis, right? Anxiety and depression. We hear that a lot, right? I have anxiety and depression, right? So they do get that diagnosis and they do understand they have both. But in terms of treatment, right? What does that look like in those situations?
Because you can't have depression without anxiety. So let's be perfectly clear. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a whole, and then we're going to say something about depression that's really, you have to wrap your mind around as a clinician. And as when we talk about just basic psychology 101, that depression is really the cornerstone of most things. My whole systems always bring that depression down, stabilize it, and whatever the problem is, it's going to be minimal.
Right. And if you have to think about the fact that, depression, I mean, in my practice and, my systems are is composed of some of the lowest energy emotions, which is shame, grief, apathy. These are the lowest vibrations that you can function on, right? So depression really is as bad as it gets. I mean, that's obvious with, its ultimate, right, which is suicide. So what can be worse, right? Homicide, suicide. All these kind of manifestations of depression, and we don't see that. We don't see homicide as depression because it's violent,
and
right?
You're just very focused in on the act,
correct?
Right? And then the person is evil and ugly and terrible,
correct?
And you're not really focused on, okay, well, what was really going on in their brain for you to do that? What is really going on with you?
And the fact that all of these kind of mass killings, these murder suicides, I mean. I don't know. I every day, right? It's kind of a news story. This mother killing her. There's this huge.
We've been triggered. It's a pandemic trigger.
Right. So we really, and of course, all these things have always existed, but we really have to get in the business of emphasizing mental health and crime, right?
Yeah. And knowing, so here's what we're going to do today.
Right.
We're going to define it.
We're
going to
tell
you
right.
what it looks like.
Right. And again, try to strip away your whole view of what depressed looks like. Try to keep an open mind as you're listening to the different ways that depression can look. And you know,
And why in your peer group,
right.
and the Z's, I have a lot of suicide, a lot of
Right.
suicide attempts.
Young, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I work on a scale, the train, and I think maybe I talked about
Yes,
this in
we
the
mentioned.
Lost
Yep.
The train, 1 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
10 is, oh my God, I could be hospitalized. 10 is homicide,
Mm-hmm.
suicide with a plan. Like I actively want to kill myself.
Right.
Right? And so then you have some pieces of that in 9. 1, though, so many people have 1. 1 I define as being slightly mean.
Irritable.
Yes. Why do you have to be mean? Why are you being mean to somebody that you say that you love? Why are you walking around feeling like kind of mean? What is that about?
Bullyish, even.
Yeah.
Customer, right?
Impatient. Impatient. Where is your patience for your children, your family, for the person that you don't even know
For
on
customer
the street?
service.
So right, customer
Right.
service, your job.
Right.
How about understanding that it is my job to be patient, right? I love this one. Slow to excite. It takes you a long time to get excited, if sometimes you even get excited, right? Something crazy has to happen for you to get excited. When you have those very low levels of depression. So it's on a scale. So
Right.
all depression does not look the same. And that's why we get so confused. And when people say, oh, just talk about it, or talk to somebody about it, find somebody to talk to, what are you talking about? What does that mean? What does that mean to the person that has a low level of depression and that's walking around feeling, right? Under eating, overeating. Those are all signs of depression. Overwhelmed by daily life. Why are you overwhelmed by your own life? This is not a quality of life to be overwhelmed, walking around feeling like I can't wait till the day's over, and then I got to go home and clean and do this, and this is not
Right.
fun, and this is I'm just feeling like, wow, this is like every single day. No, there's a name for that.
Right. And also keep in mind that just because you are on a low level of depression, and now in the diagnostic manual, we do have, degrees of depression, and they're labeled as mild, moderate, and severe. And just because you have mild depression doesn't mean you don't have it, right? So that's that black and white thinking from the anxiety that's not letting
If
you.
I'm not laying on the
Right.
couch and I can't get up,
Then I'm
I'm
fine.
fine. I don't have depression. And that's also, the medication is overused and it's also underused. We're going
Wow.
to get into that,
Yeah.
right? We're going to
Yes. That's next
couple-
episode. That's the nutraceuticals episode.
Yeah, so we're going to tell you
Medication.
what we think about meds and what we think about vitamins and herbs and all of that. But it's underused because as you get older, and some of those things I'm describing are like really defining your quality of life. And so you're 50, 60, 70 years old, and because you're older, so you're mean. Because you're older, because you have no patience. Well, you're supposed to be more at peace. You're supposed to have more patience with people. You're supposed to be more loving. But if you never treated your depression and now you're thinking, oh, I don't want to treat it. I don't want to take the meds. I don't understand it. It's not bad. No one is going to see it. I'm used to it. It's the normalization of depression in America.
Right. And, that's the hustle of New York, right? We're supposed to be tired. We're supposed to be burnt out. Because burnout means we're hustlers. Hustling means we're successful. Hustling means we're hungry, right? So if we're at rest, people report a lot in my practice. There's a guilt of rest, right? There's a guilt of self-care even.
Yes. Yes.
And that's a big boundary, that I think, I don't know if it's society, it could just be that social media, right? Kind of like drilling that, all of this, you could do this and you could be this and you could be that. And at the end, what does depression do? You take those statements and you internalize them, and then you self-loathe and you compare and you say, why can't I do that? And because
it's also
right.
quiet, isn't it? It's also very, very quiet and normalized. And again, that shame. And so I can't really share it. So I'm going to just hold on to it. But, you can always do something. You can always move yourself. But we don't really talk about how that's done. How is it done? How do I move myself out of a depressed state? What do I absolutely need to do? I listened to a commercial today from the United States Air Force. It didn't say who it was sponsored by until the very end, so I was a little shocked. But I heard them say, if you're stressed, don't just allow yourself to be stressed. Tell a friend that you're stressed. Talk to them. Do something with them. Now, see, I love that because that's real.
Right.
That's real. Tell somebody I'm feeling stressed. Why? Let somebody listen to you, and then spend some time. So that's also one of the ways socializing that we fight depression. Right? It's huge.
But socializing, if again, going back to my my scales, if you are in a kind of if you've been taken over by shame, then one of the physical manifestations of shame is elimination, right? So eliminating yourself from the world, eliminating your presence from other people, right? So that's that isolating aspect of depression, right? So you're eliminating, when you see these kids that, you talk to them and they put the blanket over their head, right? And they kind of do that thing. They put their face in their shirts. That's kind of like, I don't want to be seen. I'm very uncomfortable with this attention, with any attention.
And so that often becomes when I can get up and I'm not on the sofa crying, can't, take a shower. That often becomes as, this is just how I am.
Right.
This is who I am.
I'm an introvert.
That's what yes. This is how I've always been.
Yes.
I've always been like this. This is what I am. So let's get to some of what does it look like when you're walking around day to day? What does depression look like?
Oh, is this the high functioning depression?
Yeah, yes. Oh, yes. And that's another thing that the Z's
All right,
do.
I told you.
The Z's, they love giving technical terms new names. So many new names, right? We talked
High-functioning
about that.
depression.
Yes.
And Gina's like, it's just fucking depression, all right?
Okay.
Like, why are we...
Yeah, I'm sick of it, okay? Like, there's no such thing. Another psychologist
High-functioning
came on
anxiety.
and said, okay, let's just get it straight. When you talk about gaslighting, that's called anxiety. There's no such thing. When you talk about high-functioning depression, there's no such thing. There's so many of these terms that
we get drowned in them. We
Right.
get drowned. And those are things, right? Gaslighting is, we love subtext, right? Because again, that is part of our society's anxiety to just kind of poke at everything.
Here we go, exactly. So here's my list. My list is drug use, very normalized and becoming more and more normalized. But if you are, and so maybe if you're young in your early 20s and you're using a little this and that, then yes, that's a little rite of passage. Maybe you're experimenting. You don't need it, but you're trying to figure yourself, learn yourself. After a certain age, when the brain is done developing, 24, and you're still getting high, now you're masking something, you're hiding something, you're trying to find something, you're pushing in pain, you're using drugs and the alcohol, and I'm not talking about a couple glasses of wine. If you're fighting or arguing with total strangers and or the people that you say that you love, that's depression. That's depression. What is with the fighting and the arguing and the screaming? And New Yorkers are just so classic, right? We just
Right.
want to fight and yell and think that it's okay.
Well,
Because-
because everybody's on eggshells. Everybody's on eggshells, even though it's interesting because in reality, we're all stressed about the same things most of the time. But, New York is all about minding your business, right? So there goes sometimes the socialization, right? We live in buildings. We don't even know who lives in the next door to us.
Yeah, it didn't used to be like that.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that just gets, just because of the crime. And I think all big cities, right? New York is not the only big city that suffers from a lot of crime. It really kind of destroys community,
Yeah.
destroys
Yeah.
socialization, which then, we get more depressed. So we're more into, doing drugs and alcohol and money. Money's also,
So that's another one, overspending,
right.
right? Just shopping so that you can feel something as a way to socialize, as a pastime. So I'm shopping. I don't see it's a problem. I've
Oh,
been doing
Amazon
it.
Prime. Come
But-
on, y'all.
Yeah, come on. That's depression. That is a low level of depression. It is what it is. I know you don't think you're depressed. I know you don't. I know you don't want to be. You think that you know. You think that, and if you don't know it, if we don't talk about it and you understand what it exactly looks like, this is why suicide occurs.
Eventually, absolutely, right? And we always say mental illness is progressive. So, there's no such thing as I'm going to grow out of my anxiety. I'm going to grow out of my depression. Okay,
Right.
y'all? The longer you go untreated, the worse it gets, because that's just how mental health works.
Yeah, it's like anything. It's like
Yes.
it's like physical
Progressive.
health. What are you going
Right.
to do? Not treat your cancer? What are you going to do? Not treat your emphysema? I'm just
yeah.
I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to
Right.
see what happens. Yeah. Okay. Well, you're going to see what happens. Is that it's going to get worse? Okay. So yeah, see that.
Right.
So what do we want? So what do I still have? I have constant problems in your relationship. Cannot settle down. You can't get to a space where everything is peaceful, and not that you can't have an argument out of the rare argument, but this thinking that my relationship is based on arguing, that it's normal, that this is how we can function, this is how we communicate. You know how many patients I have to tell me that? I say, it's just it's part of it. It's what we do. All couples argue. I'm like, okay,
No, not like that.
no, not when you're dysfunctional. And an argument can be in a relationship that's not dysfunctional. Oh, we had a misunderstanding.
Right.
So it doesn't mean that I start fighting you if I see you don't understand what I'm trying to say. What's up with my patience?
Well, in all of my couples work, when you are married to somebody or you're the person with depression, I always need to emphasize a couple of things. And that's number one, people who are depressed can't hear you.
At a certain level. So there's
Okay.
a train again.
Right.
If you're at a 1 or a 2,
Yeah.
sometimes they're a little open. And especially if you sort of
Catch
say,
them on a good day.
Yes, yes. But a 5, that's
And
where
above?
it's dangerous.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So now I cannot hear.
They can't hear you, and y'all are arguing, And most of the time, these, anxious and depressed people find each other because, you got to be really depressed to deal with a very highly anxious person, right? You got to have some block to their stress where you can kind of, just kind of go inside, right? And kind of desensitize yourself to that anxiety energy. And really only an anxious person can deal with somebody who's really depressed, right? Because they're so preoccupied with their
They don't even see 'em.
dilemmas,
Yeah, they
right?
don't
And their
even see 'em.
negativity and this problem and that problem. And they just, they don't even see them. So you find those pairings a lot. So people are depressed, remember, they can't hear you. So unless you treat their depression, y'all can keep fighting and fighting over nothing.
But
Because-
you can
right.
pick a human being apart that has depression.
They'll let you.
Right. Yes. Right. Oh, you do this. Or why don't you do this? Or why don't you do that? Why are you so lazy? Why are you so
That's
this? Why are you doing
that's
that? Why
the
don't you?
anxious partner.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. So there's that dance. Yeah.
Right.
So now we're really
They
into
dance
it.
perfectly, I will say. it's an ugly dance, but
Well,
they're
and the
they're
anxious,
in rhythm.
and the two
right.
anxious partners also know one another. They know, it's always a fight. You see, if you have
Yes.
one depressed, they'll be quiet,
Right.
right? They'll just suck it in. They're sad.
Defeated.
They're depressed. Yes, defeated.
Right.
It's not quiet at all, is it? It's very defeated. Yeah. So we're talking about triggering, and we love to say trigger here in New York. Oh, you're so triggering. Oh, that's so triggering.
Trigger
You
warning.
trigger me. What are you doing? No. When we say trigger, we're talking about, think about the train. If you're at a 4 and you've been triggered, so what
Right.
happened to Twitch? Awful, sad, lovely, sweetest
Right.
guy, right? I don't know him, but that spirit, that soul, what that can look like again is that you're at a 4 or a 5. Now, a 4 or a 5 also on my list is I don't want to be here. That equals I'm going to kill myself
Eventually.
eventually.
Right.
Right? Because if I don't want to be here, what is that really saying? What is that saying? It's very different than having a suicidal plan.
Right.
It's very different than actively trying to kill yourself.
Right.
You're just saying, I don't want to be here. Now, what happens when something is triggering?
Right.
Something happens in your life, someone says something wrong, someone that you love passes away.
You didn't
or
sleep
gets
well,
sick,
you haven't
or-
eaten well, you got sick, you're so many things, y'all. So many things.
Now I'm triggered at a 7 or 8. And so now, in one day,
Right.
it could happen in 24 hours.
And doesn't it often happen that way when we hear about these stories when they come out, right? Oh, they were fine just yesterday.
Yeah, except that you were never fine, because 5 is
Right.
not fine. We're saying 2, 1 is not fine.
But in New York, we're saying 5 is just fine. You see?
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's,
No,
but whose
right?
responsibility is that for helping us really understand that really what that looks like day to day,
Right.
explaining it, going through it, picking through the definition of it. That's really what we're talking about. If you don't know what you're looking at, if everybody, the only thing you know about depression is that you can't get out of bed, then we are lost.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there have been some commercials where, you know, I don't know if you've ever seen these commercials because, you know, we love mental health pharmaceutical commercials in this country. There's this one commercial where, you know, you see the person walking around smiling and then they have a sad face or something like
Yes.
plant. You seen this commercial?
Yes. Yes,
Right?
I respect that one.
Right,
As
right.
opposed to the one what's the woman on the sofa
Yeah.
and the elephant is on her chest.
Right,
Yes.
right. And it doesn't feel that way. You know, a lot of, especially, you know, in terms of suicide rates, the highest suicide rates are amongst middle-aged white men.
Really?
Yes. So in that case, we think about, well, you know, also heart attack. Who is at highest risk for a heart attack?
Right.
Right? Because
Right.
there's
Yeah.
that suppression. There's that putting that high functioning depression, right? We still got to get up. We go to work. We do our thing. Da 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 da.
Yeah,
da.
American psychologist said that, and their study on depression said that you will, if you have depression, you are 70%. There's a 70% higher chance that you die an early death.
Absolutely.
70%, of course.
Absolutely.
You look at all of these symptoms that we're talking about, right? Your alcohol use, your drug use, you're stressed over your relationship,
Your sleep
you're
disturbance.
arguing.
Right.
There's we could go on and on and on, right?
Right.
You're poor. It looks like poor decision making.
Poor
also.
decision. Yep.
You're
That's
making
the
poor
one.
decisions about your health.
Right.
So you're making poor decisions.
Right.
We say, why would you do that? What were you thinking? Why would you get out and smack somebody because they cut you off? You're poor decision making.
Right. Absolutely.
And all of that, right? That's what it looks like. Cheating, infidelity.
Infidelity.
You're not making, again, clear decisions. The best definition that I have come across for depression is you have unclear thinking.
Yep.
Unclear thinking. And if you understand that and get in touch with that, there's so many things that you can do to help clear up your thinking.
Yeah.
You don't always have to take, that medication. There's so
Right.
many other things that you can do. But if you need it, God knows, take it. Okay?
Right.
That's what it's there for. But take it. But it's available to you. But get in touch with what unclear thinking means, looks like in yourself and in others.
Right. Right. And don't normalize unclear thinking. I always talk about clarity in my practice, right? When people are, they come and they have a dilemma, right? A huge dilemma. I'm like, well, and they think that the aim is to find the right decision. This is always people's aim, right? Because that's that instant gratification, garbage. Like, well, I need to make the right decision and I have to avoid the wrong one, right? And I have to make sure that this goes like this because if not, that goes like that. All this like fucking, I call it branching, right? They like, they just like every thought has 3 branches and they keep doing this and you get so lost. It's like this big crazy tree and you don't even know where the hell the nest is at. You're lost. You have no idea what's going on in your head. I'm like, listen, the goal is to get some clarity.
Yes.
Okay, so if
Preach.
if you put some shit at the bottom of a body of water and I put that shit right at the bottom and I'm like, okay, look at that. What's down there? You might be able to tell me. But if I get in that water and I start slapping, flapping, walking around, and I'm like creating ripples everywhere, and I tell you, all right, let me know what that is. You won't be able to.
Because you can't see.
So why
It's
the
not clear.
hell, right? So why the hell would we now go bobbing for nothing? Because we can't see. So why don't we stop? I call it sleepwalking. Like right now you're sleepwalking, right? You're moving around, you're doing stuff. I get it. You can kind of like, you can open the fridge. You don't even know how the hell you know how to open the fridge. You're sleeping. You can do all these things.
So many.
Your awareness, your consciousness. And, sometimes I have people, couples and stuff, and they're really depressed. And you ask them why they did something, and they tell me, I don't know. And I fucking believe them.
Yeah,
I believe them.
Again,
Right.
what is that basic premise of I don't know why I do what I do, and a step higher than that is I don't even think about what I do.
Right. Oof. No, that's the sleepwalkers.
Right.
That's the sleepwalking.
Yeah.
Until some physical thing wakes you up And then you realize you made a fucking mess. You went in the kitchen, you opened this, you opened that. And now in your reality, when you snap back to into your consciousness, to your awareness, you say, look at this mess. My life's a mess.
Part of that too is, again, in this
So
society,
I'm going back to sleep.
we just feel like I'm not happy, but who's happy? And what does that look like? And how does that feel? And I'm not familiar.
Okay,
So it's
that's
sort
a
of, I'm
whole
just-
episode. This
It's a different
pursuit
episode,
of
it's not this.
happiness. You know, girl, listen. The pursuit of that's a huge topic, right? Because
Yeah, I had a patient one time, and she said to me, I said, "So why are you at the job that you're at?" And she said, "Oh, because it pays the bills, and the pay is pretty good." And I said, "But what about happiness? What about some joy? What about doing things?" And she said, "What? Why? I never. Nobody's ever said that to me." I said, "Are you kidding me?" And I said, "Well, who told you that you
she
should
must
just
be
take
old.
it?"
Is she a boomer or something?
No. Well, this is a while ago, but
Yeah, so she was a.
so no. Well, at the time she was 24.
Okay.
Right? So she was 24 years
That's
old.
strange.
And
I
I
feel like
said-
we're all about that now. Only that.
What?
Happy.
Oh, well, the
yeah,
pandemic
new-
has,
yeah, yeah.
kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
like say, what the hell's going on? No, but this is,
Oh, okay.
10 years ago.
Right.
And
People
so
do
she
think
said,
that way still, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Especially if you
at
have boomer
25 years old,
parents.
24 years old,
Right.
and then she says, yeah, oh, my dad says that, be grateful just that you even have a job. I said, you're not making any sense at all. This is your life. You only have one. And so is that how, you're going to live
the
it?
50 hours? See, my thing with that is if you work a little part-time gig and you don't really care about the work and whatever, that's fine. Whatever. It's a small piece of your pie. However, if y'all are working 50, 60 hours at some place that you don't feel fulfilled, but you feel drained of your life force, of your creativity, of whatever, then you're headed down a really, really dark path and you're just waiting to burst.
And where is that going? What is that doing to your mind and your body? What does that do to you every single day?
Right.
And then you want to convince yourself that you're not depressed or that there's something wrong and you don't know what it is. And that's what we're trying to do. We're
Right.
trying to help everybody understand exactly what it looks like. If there could be a commercial on what it looks like, right, the details of it, and then we would really be someplace. And then not to mention, going to a depressed therapist. So I'm depressed and I go show up in front of a depressed therapist who,
Says nothing.
or again, normalize it, right? Normalize it. So we you and I do have a list of in our next episode, right? About what do you now do now that you know what it looks like.
Right. So, see if you kind of identify with any of those and, take a look at yourselves. And it's okay. Listen, there's solutions.
That's
It's
the point.
2023.
That's the
Okay.
point.
21st century mental health here.
Yeah.
Okay. If you can't, at this point, if the problem is that you don't want to admit you're depressed, oh man, you're like far behind.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get with the program.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Leave the term depression behind. It'll be all right.
And just say,
right?
I'm a
And
little
say,
this or that.
Yes,
That's
yes.
it.
This is how I'm feeling. I'm not good.
Right.
Yeah, we don't need to label
We don't
it.
care
That's not
about
necessary.
That. That's for
not
us.
necessary.
That's not really for you guys. That's
Yeah.
for us to put you right. That's a diagnostic manual situation. Y'all don't need to know about that. I always say focus on your symptoms. Let's just focus on what the symptom is. Okay, because all diagnosis is a collection of symptoms. That's all it is.
Yes, yes. And it's going to help you to know your feelings.
Right.
Again, we're not talking about bombing words. We're talking about you really also knowing, okay, this is how I'm feeling, and it doesn't make me happy. It's not feeling good.
Right.
And I want to be happy, and I know that I can.
Right.
Okay. All right. So stay tuned for the next one when we continue and we talk about in great detail, right? What do you do?
Depression Part 2.
Thank you for listening to City Shrinks. Stay tuned for future episodes where we answer your questions, hear your challenges, and hold everybody accountable.
Be sure to rate, review, and follow us on Instagram @CityShrinks.